Hey everybody, welcome back to the Read Well podcast. My name is Eddie Hood and I talk about the art of reading slowly. I've gotten so many kind messages from each of you, just talking about how you are benefiting from this message, how you're appreciating the concept of slowing down and reading well. And that means a whole lot to me. So I'm going to ask a favor of you. I've been putting out YouTube videos for quite a long time now. And what I'm finding is that I get very few comments on my videos. I'm not sure why that is. In fact, many of my videos have no comments. So I want to ask you right now, if you can, if you're watching this on YouTube, down in the comment section below, share with us your love letter for why you love to read books and how they've affected your life as an adult. Okay, so I'm going to share with you 5 different things that have really impacted me and why I just love these things called books. I'm also going to give you an update on where I'm at with Edgewater Bookstore. This is a bookstore that I'm opening. It's my dream. I've always wanted to have one. And then I'll give you a few fun announcements for the community. So let's jump in. The first thing that I think about when it comes to the weird and wonderful world of reading books is that it's a little weird to be a reader in this sort of current economy. There is so much vying for our attention that when you see an adult who is sitting down and patiently and quietly reading a book, rather than behaving the way everybody else is, which is to be frenetic and chaotic and busy and stressed and anxious and mentally just diverted, it's really weird to see, especially an adult sitting in a corner of a room with a book open, just being with themselves, being patient, being present, learning, and really enjoying a beautifully piece of written text. That's weird, and that's what I love about this. It allows me, one, to have a connection with those people. I fully understand why they're in that book, and so it's really nice to be able to go up and talk to them, ask them what they're reading. It's a really great way to, this is going to sound weird, but to make friends, right? So at 44 years old, it's hard to make friends, and it's a really lonely time now in life where we are so focused on virtual meetings and social media and just trying to get busy with work that taking time for friendship is, at least in my life, getting harder and harder to do. So when I see an adult with a book, it's really nice to be able to say, hey, what you reading? And have a conversation about those books. So first and foremost, it's nice being a little weird. Now, the second thing I like about books is that in that sort of chaos of sort of attention-grabbing media, I'm never in control of my attention space. Everybody is controlling my attention, from my clients to the billboards to the television, and I think you get the idea. But when it comes to books, I walk over to my bookshelf. I choose what I want to think about or read, and I choose how to control my attention space. It's just a really great thing. Now, you might think, I get to choose my attention space when I watch TV. If I choose to watch, Yellowstone or whatever it's going to be, I'm choosing to do that. Yes, but in between all of those things, you've got commercials and distractions and so on. The beautiful thing about books, everybody, is there are no ads inside these books. There are no marketers screaming at you. There are no businesses trying to get your attention. It's just you and a bunch of beautiful ideas for you to engage with. So you get to pick your attention and where you want to focus. Now, that can be on how to cook the very best curry. I love curry, by the way. Let's see. So we're reading Walt Whitman in my book club right now. This is the Deathbed edition, which a little foreshadowing here. I'm going to be reading a small bit of Walt Whitman to you in just a minute because it applies and you're going to love this passage. But anyway, I get to choose what I want to think about. And so I just think that's liberating, the ability to be in control of my mind for once. Okay, now, the weird and wonderful world of reading books as an adult is different than it was when we were kids. Because you remember when we were children, you'd go to the library. I had a thing called the bookmobile. Do you guys remember the bookmobile? This is how old I am. A bus would show up to my elementary school. It was the greatest thing ever. And it was lined with books. You would walk in, and it was like a mobile library, and you could check books out. It was like the magic school bus coming to visit us, and it just, like, my skin's getting tingly thinking about it. I loved it. I loved it so much because it felt like possibility was coming to me, and I got to, again, choose where I wanted to be. But you know what? Reading as an adult feels different, doesn't it? I mean, our brains are more mature. We have responsibilities now. We have a lot of people trying to use our time and so on. So it really is hard to get into that mental space we had as kids when we could just sit in a windowsill and lazily read for 8 or 9 hours. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I had 8 or 9 hours to just lazily read. That would be really nice. I don't have that. So I think we need to acknowledge the fact that reading as an adult is different, and that's okay. I got thinking about this because last Tuesday in our book club, one of the members said something that just made me laugh. She said, one of my favorite things to do when I get a new book is to smell the pages. And then she held up an invisible book to her nose and took a big sort of whiff. And I audibly laughed because I relate to that. And everybody on camera was shaking their heads going, yep, I know exactly what you mean. Because what happens when you do that? Yes, if you're listening to the podcast, I am smelling the pages of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. But when you do that, a flood of sensory details comes into play, and you almost are transported back to that childhood bookmobile where the walls are lined with books and there's magic on the shelves and you have all of the possibility in your hands, right? But you can also smell sort of peace and tranquility and time with yourself to think where people can't get to you and so on. But as an adult, they can get to you. People still knock on your door. They still email you. And that's what's making reading hard today. And I think that's why the podcast is resonating with so many of you, because you are distracted and you are frustrated that you can't hold your attention or your focus for as long as you used to be able to do. So let's talk about that. There's a really great book. I actually don't have it on my shelves. I can't find it, which is weird because I just rearranged all these shelves. It's around here somewhere. But it's by Seth Godin, and it's called The Dip. Now, Seth is a business writer, so I don't typically talk about business books on this podcast or this show. I tend to talk about philosophy, classical literature, poetry, stuff that really makes you think and experience what it means to be human. But Seth's book has changed my life. The Dip is a very small book. You can read it very easily. It lends itself well to the main idea, which is this. I want you to envision sort of the X and Y coordinate plane, like the graphs, right? That you had to deal with in a math class. Now, you're all probably rolling your eyes. Don't turn off the podcast just because I'm talking about math. This is important. But right where those lines meet, the x-axis and the y-axis, that's called 0, 0, or the origin point, right? Nothing has happened yet. That's where you stand as an adult reader. Now, when you start a new book, you experience just sort of this roller coaster of emotions. And a roller coaster is a good word here for the way this graph is going to go, because what happens is as you begin to read a new book, right, you're excited. You're excited about the potential. You're curious as to where you're going to go and what you're going to learn. And so that graph begins to go up and to the right, which is a good thing. You begin to have a positive experience with it. But then, according to Seth, the dip begins to take place. Now, the dip occurs in all areas of life whenever you try anything new. I know we're getting off topic, but stick with me. This is important. Don't let me lose you. Because what happens is, after a couple pages in a book, maybe 10, 20, 30 pages, what happens is as you start to lose that momentum. Now, not all books are like this. Some books just keep the momentum going. They're page turners, and they are hard to put down. But let's be honest, very few books are that way. Most books are put downable. You can walk away from them and return, and you won't sort of lose your mind not knowing what's going to happen. Because most books are put downable, what happens is you begin to lose your sort of momentum on the book, right? Because life kicks in. You've lost that sort of new polish on the book. It's got maybe a bent page or two, and you've spent some time with it. And so you begin to come back down to the x-axis, where you're just sort of at a normal base level again, okay? Now, here's what happens. You enter the dip. You actually go into a negative space with projects sometimes, or new books, where you really not only lose momentum, but you start to think it's a slog. Slog's a good word, right? It's like work now to do this thing. Have you ever had a book that's just work to get through? Well, that's down in the very bottom of this dip. Right now, if you picture this on the XY axis, you're actually in the negative space down below the x-axis. So you're actually mentally worse off than when you started, because now you've got this thing you got to complete, another item on your checklist, a project. And in fact, you hear this all the time. People say, I got to get through this book. And I talk about how you should never get through a book. Like, why are you reading it if you're getting through it? Reading's an experience. But if I'm being honest, I've often felt this slog. And again, it's for a couple reasons. One, because I am an adult and I have, parent-teacher conference and kids and soccer, all the stuff, right? And life piles on and I sort of lose the thread of my book. And so it becomes work to remember where I was at and what's happening. And so I end up in this dip. Now, here's what happens. People often ask me, when should I stop reading a book? When do I know a book's bad? Because there are so many books. I don't really know. I don't want to waste time reading the bad books. And when you get into that dip, you're there for one of two reasons. A, the book is actually bad. You shouldn't be reading it. And I always tell people to give a book 50 pages. So in 50 pages, you're going to know if this book is worth your time or not. And you really need to be honest with yourself, because if it's not, there is no shame in closing that book, donating it to somebody else. I wouldn't even keep it, right? I would give it to somebody else who might enjoy it, because a book shouldn't just sit on your shelf and collect dust. It should empower somebody, and this book is going to resonate with somebody. I just realized how goofy that sounds because I'm holding Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. This is one of my favorite books ever. It is my favorite book of poetry. Anyway, whatever book you're reading, it's going to resonate with somebody. So give it away. Don't keep it, right? However, the second reason why you might be in the dip is simply because it's become a little bit of work. Now, to read a book well is a form of work. It's not just entertainment. I want to get that across, because if we're only reading for entertainment, then we're only going to be able to access a certain kind of book. Now, I have no problem with reading just for entertainment. In fact, I do it every night. That's how I sort of get ready for bed. I have my whole ritual. I love it. But when I'm reading through the day, and especially in the morning, I'm trying to access books that do more than entertain. Again, they teach me how to live and sort of embrace the most out of this life that I have, this thing called being human. Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass is a great example of that. So if I'm going to read his poetry well, and I'm going to really suck the marrow out of it, right? Now we're going into like Dead Poets Society conversation here. But I'm going to do that. I have to put some energy in. I can't just read the words. I have to do that. Now, the copy I'm holding in my hands is actually a brand new copy I bought for Book Club. But you can kind of see, like if you look at the pages, you can see how I approach reading poetry, right? I absolutely write all over the poem. I have a color-coded system that is similar to my fiction that I use. And it doesn't really matter. This video and this episode isn't about how I analyze poetry. What I'm showing you is that it actually matters that you put in the work if you want to get something out of it. So you're down in the dip now because you're realizing, oh, I've got a really valuable book here. And if I'm going to read it well, I got to get the notes out. I got to get the journal out, the highlighters out. I got to put effort in. And do I really have the time and energy and effort to do that? Now, I love this concept. I had an interview a week or two ago with an incredible author, Junot Diaz. Juno, if you're watching again, thank you. Your interview was so much fun. But I asked him, how do you become a better reader? And he said something very profound. He said, it depends on where you're at in life. Most people, when I ask that, they say, well, you need a program and you need to read at least 30 minutes a day. He ignored all of that standard advice and started with, it depends on where you're at in life, which means you need to know yourself. Now, if you're going to be reading something as beautiful and technical as Leaves of Grass, yes, you need to know where you're at in life, and you need to be able to give some time to this. I made a joke a couple nights ago in book club because we're reading Walt, as I mentioned, and we were talking about reading poetry slowly and, in fact, reading it out loud, because by doing that, you engage with the flavor, the sound, the texture of the words, and things will make more sense to you. And you really have to slow down. We're only reading we're reading Song of Myself, which is about an 85-ish page poem over the course of 2 weeks. We're only reading 6 pages a day, which you could probably read in 10 minutes, right? If you just blow through it. But I'm asking people to really slow down and spend time on those 6 pages and to reread them multiple times and to highlight them. Because here's the thing. If Walt Whitman were to walk into your house and sit down at the table and begin to recite his amazing poem, Song of Myself, are you honestly going to be like, hurry up, Walt, come on, I got stuff to do, I got things to handle, places to be, can you speed it up? You wouldn't do that. You would instead say, wow, what a great experience. Walt Whitman is in my living room, full beard and all, right? He's in all of his glory, and he is sharing his poetry with me. I need a notebook. I need a tape recorder. I need to slow this down and suck the marrow out of this experience. That's how you would behave. Now, for some reason, we don't realize that by holding Walt's poetry in our hands and reading it ourselves, we're literally doing that. We're inviting Walt into our living room, and we're spending time with him. In fact, this is where I want to read to you the beginning paragraph, or the beginning verse of Song of Myself, because it's very important. He says, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. There's a lot going on there. This, again, video isn't meant to, or this episode isn't meant to analyze this poem, which we should probably do that later on. But I want to point something out to you. He starts with the word I. I celebrate myself. So instantly, this is becoming a very intimate poem. This isn't a poem about nations or politics or war, or it's about I. It's Walt Whitman. And then he ends it with you. And so what he's doing is he is saying, hey, I'm going to talk about what it means to be me, and I'm going to invite you along on this journey, and we're going to talk about how to get the most out of being yourself, right? So that's what it means to read slowly, and it's going to take some work. If you think about that passage and start writing some notes, again, you're going to have to put some effort into it. And so when you're down in that dip, going back to that concept, you're in the very bottom and you're faced with the amount of work it's going to take, that's okay to sort of be scared by that level of effort and to realize, I don't have space in my life for this right now. Or if you choose to make space for it, be conscientious about that and decide, you know what, I really want to get the most I can out of this poem or this novel or whatever. I'm going to treat this a little more like a college course or my job, or if I wanted to learn to play the piano, I would block out 30 to 60 minutes a day and practice the piano. That's what this is. And that's why the dip feels a little sort of heavy at times. Now, here's the fun part. Once you decide to stick with the book and to give it all you have and to begin treating it with respect, you begin to crawl out of that hole, right? Instead of jumping ship to a new book, you decided to stick with it. So you begin to crawl out of that hole and you begin to sort of soar way beyond where you ever were. And you get to this vista point that is so much higher in elevation of understanding and beauty and intrigue and curiosity. And as you stand up on that mountainous vista and look around and appreciate what your author has given you, you can sort of shout from that mountaintop and share it with the world, say thank you. You can close your eyes and be at peace with what you've learned. This is the weird and wonderful world of reading books as an adult. But it takes effort and energy, and it's a decision you have to make. All right, everybody, by way of announcement for Edgewater Bookstore, a lot of great things are happening. Number one, I have decided on an opening date. So I've created a playlist on YouTube down below on my channel. So if you go to the Read Well podcast on YouTube, you'll see a playlist there of videos that are just sort of a vlog style of me building this bookstore. I've only got one video there right now, but I'm getting ready to record another one, and I'll just keep that going. But for those who are listening to the podcast, I want to keep you up to date as well. The opening date for Edgewater is going to be October 23rd, 2024. And if you haven't yet, go to edgewaterbookstore.com and put in your email there, and that will give you sort of first in-line benefits. So, good stuff. Okay, here are a few things that I've built for the bookstore that I'm excited about. Every book that I sell will come with an Edgewater bookmark. Now, here's why this is cool. This is a working bookmark. So I'm going to describe this for people who are listening. On one side, it's glossy, and it just says the Edgewater Bookstore logo, but below that, it says read deeply. Now, that's becoming the sort of motto of the bookstore, because Edgewater is a curated book selection. It's not just every book I can get my hands on. I'm not buying boxes of used books. I'm buying very curated selections of books and providing notes and other tools to help you get the most of those. So we're all about reading deeply at Edgewater. Now, on the other side, this is where it's really cool. It's a matte paper finish so that you can write on it with anything from a pen to a pencil. And it's a working bookmark in the sense that you have the ability to write the title of your book, the pages per day that you'd like to read, the date that you started it, and the date that you finished it. And there are sort of a checkbox system here of the date that you want to read those pages, how many pages you're in, and so on, and you just check it off. And this is a way to keep you on track so that you're showing up for your daily reading habit. This really will support you over 8 weeks or 56 days, which would probably help you with most books to get through them completely. So every book will get one of those. You'll be able to purchase them separately too if you want to buy them in packs of 3 or 5 or whatever, I don't know. But they'll come with each book. Now, the second thing I'm working on is a series of custom notebooks. I love little notebooks that are like this, right? If you go to any bookstore and you buy journals, okay, you just got pages of journals. I don't want basic plain journals. What I want are very specific notebooks dedicated to your study sessions. So this is just the cover right now. This is my prototype. I've got the interior pages that I'm printing on next, but you'll see this. So what I'm holding in my hand is a cover for a notebook, and it just says reading notes for, and then you have a way to write your book name on the front here. The back of the notebook has the Edgewater logo, and then it's just got some waves for water. Well, when you open it, there again, of course, will be pages in here, but right now on the inside cover, you have the ability to write the title of the book, the author, the publisher, and the publishing date. There's a place for you to write a paragraph of why you're reading this book. And then the back cover of your notebook will have a place for you to write the 5 major lessons you picked up from your reading. I'm excited to show you this full notebook once it's done. This will be my general notebook, which you can purchase for any book I don't sell on edgewaterbookstore.com, and you just want to keep good book notes. This will be great once it's finally done. But the more interesting thing is I'm building custom notebooks for the books that I sell. So my first book just came in. I'll be selling Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. There will be a notebook just for meditations. It will have my book notes in it. It will have writing prompts for you related to meditations and how to get the most out of that book and so on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really excited. Okay, let's do this week's book recommendation here at the Readable Podcast. I thought long and hard about what I wanted to share with you all, and school's getting started again for me. My kids actually went back today. We're getting into that sort of swing of scheduling and steadiness and all of that, but we get really busy once kids are in school. And it made me think of Bertrand Russell's In Praise of Idleness. This is a great essay. Bertrand Russell was a philosopher, sort of that iconic philosopher. If you look at him, any picture of him, he's got like a big pipe and he's in a tweed jacket, and like he just looks like a philosopher. He's a fascinating guy. But Bertrand wrote this essay called In Praise of Idleness. And the reason I like it is because it kind of goes along with what I'm reading with Walt Whitman right now in Leaves of Grass. So there's actually a passage in here where Walt invites you to sort of become a loafer. Now, a loafer is not somebody that's lazy, that just wastes his life. Let me read this small passage to you from Song of Myself. He says, I loaf and invite my soul. I lean and loaf at my ease, observing a spear of summer grass. Now, a lot of people complained about Walt Whitman, saying he just kind of moved around slowly, got things done slowly, and he just wasn't hustling and constantly like making things and what have you. But Walt found value in just being present and thinking and really sort of, again, sucking that marrow out of life. Well, Bertrand Russell is making a similar argument that you shouldn't be lazy. You shouldn't just wake up and do nothing, but you should be idle. There's value in being idle, where instead of constantly going, you're constantly just being present and thinking and being with your thoughts and trying to understand what's happening, asking the why question. So I'd encourage you to check out In Praise of Idleness. This is a fun little book. I will be selling this one on edgewaterbookstore.com. If you are interested in supporting me there, you'll be able to buy that after October 23rd. This is a fun essay. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Read Well podcast. I want to thank you for being here. I'm so grateful that all of you are emailing me and leaving reviews on Apple iTunes on the podcast, sharing your success with becoming a reader again, learning how to slow down and be present with the books that you love. That's what we're all about, and it is just a ton of fun being here with you. So until next week, as always, remember to read slowly, take notes, and apply the ideas. I'll see you guys next time.